Welcome to me, where suspenseful, thrilling, and mysterious stories will draw you into a world where the lines between reality and fantasy seem to blur. When the night falls, when all the sounds gradually quiet down, leaving only your own heartbeat and breathing, that's when these stories begin. Tensions, unsolved mysteries, moments that will make you hold your breath in fear or curiosity, all are waiting for you ahead. Find a comfortable seat, dim the lights, and let this sound guide you on a journey that is not for the faint of heart. I want each of you to leave a comment sharing where you are in the world. And if you are enjoying the episodes, don't forget to give a like and subscribe to the channel now. Relax. Are you ready? If so, join me in the first story right now. The Chase on the Rails. A pre-World War I. Calm masked the coming global upheaval. Amidst this backdrop, a train chugged steadily through the English countryside, its destination, Dover. Aboard the 1914 vessel, a passenger captivated many. The air was thick with a mix of excitement and unease as the train thundered down the tracks, its rhythmic chugging creating a comforting backdrop to the day's unfolding drama. Outside, the view was a mosaic of vibrant green meadows and charming hamlets, smelling fresh earth wafting through the windows, contrasting with arguing the imminent war. Inside the train carriage, the passenger in question sat quietly, their demeanor calm, yet enigmatic. Dressed in a sharp suit and hat, they exuded an air of mystery that drew curious glances from their fellow travelers. The train's rhythmic motion seemed to lull the other passengers into a sense of security. But an aura of intrigue surrounded this particular individual. The landscape outside the window shifted from a bustling cityscape to serene countryside. The enigmatic passenger remained a captivating enigma. Who was this mysterious figure? And what secrets did they carry with them on this fateful journey to Dover? The answers lay shrouded in the depths of their enigmatic presence, waiting to be unraveled by the curious minds on board. As the train neared its destination, the tension on board seemed to heighten, mirroring the growing unease gripping the world at large. Little did the passengers know the events set in motion by this mysterious traveler would soon intersect with the tumult of war, forever altering the course of history. Among the passengers was Mata Hari, the enigmatic Dutch dancer and courtesan who had captivated and charmed the elite of Europe. But her allure had drawn suspicion, and the British intelligence service had dispatched one of their finest, a seasoned spy named Jonathan Hawke, to shadow her every move. As the train pulled away from Victoria Station, Jonathan positioned himself discreetly in the adjoining compartment. His eyes never left the door to Mata Hari's cabin. Dressed in an inconspicuous dark suit, he blended seamlessly with the other travelers, his demeanor calm, but his senses alert. The rhythmic clattering of the train wheels provided a steady soundtrack to to the journey. Jonathan's thoughts were as relentless as the locomotive's progress. He knew Mata Hari was dangerous. Her charm and beauty merely veils for her cunning and guile. The British had reason to believe she was ferrying secrets to the enemy, and Jonathan's mission was simple: follow her, gather evidence, and ensure she did not slip through their fingers. In her compartment, Mata Hari appeared unperturbed, gazing out at the passing landscapes with an air of nonchalance. Her elegant attire, a blend of exoticism and European sophistication, further enhanced her mystique. Her eyes, however, betrayed a sharpness, a readiness for the unexpected. As the train approached the coastal town of Dover, Jonathan's instincts heightened. He knew that if Mata Hari were to escape, it would be through the port, where she could easily vanish across the channel to France. He reviewed his plan, every move calculated to counter any strategy she might employ. The train's whistle announced their arrival at Dover. Passengers gathered their belongings, anticipation mingling with the salty sea air. Jonathan observed Mata Hari, who seemed in no rush. Her leisurely demeanor was unnerving, but Jonathan knew better than to underestimate her. At the station, the hustle and bustle provided ample cover for both pursuers and pursued. Jonathan kept a safe distance, blending with the crowd. Mata Hari moved with purpose, her steps leading her inevitably towards the ferry docks. As the crowd surged forward, Jonathan deftly maneuvered through the throng, maintaining his vigil on Mata Hari. His heart pounded, the adrenaline of the chase sharpening his senses. He saw her exchange a quick glance with a man in a gray overcoat, a signal too subtle for most eyes, but not for Jonathan's trained observation. Mata Hari quickened her pace, gliding through the bustling station with the grace of a dancer. Jonathan matched her stride for stride, his focus unwavering. He noticed the man in the gray overcoat shadowing her, and it became clear Jonathan was not the only one on her trail. The docks were a maze of activity, with ferries preparing for departure and travelers hurrying to embark. Mata Hari headed towards a smaller vessel, its destination marked as Calais. Jonathan felt the tension coil within him. He had to act swiftly to prevent her escape. Just as Mata Hari reached the gangway, Jonathan closed the gap, his hand inching towards his concealed firearm. But before he could make his move, the man in the gray overcoat stepped forward, blocking Jonathan's path. Their eyes locked, a silent recognition passing between the two agents of their deadly game. In a flash, the man drew a weapon, and something forced Jonathan to dive for cover. The crack of gunfire split the air, sending panic through the crowd. With the sight of her bodyguard lying dead with a bullet in the middle of his forehead, Mata Hari, seizing the moment of chaos, darted up the gangway and onto the ferry. Jonathan scrambled to his feet, his gaze fixed on the retreating figure of the dancer. now almost obscured by the fleeing passengers. Desperate, Jonathan sprinted towards the ferry, but it was too late. The vessel pulled away from the dock, the gap between the ship and the quay widening with every second. He watched as Mata Hari stood at the railing, a faint, knowing smile playing on her lips. The sound of the ship's horn echoed through the harbor, signaling its departure. Jonathan's heart sank as he realized he had missed his chance to reach Mata Hari. The image of her standing there, so close yet out of reach, haunted him as the ferry disappeared into the horizon. Despair washed over him as he stood alone on the empty dock, the cold wind cutting through his coat and sending shivers down his spine. The sound of seagulls echoed in the distance, a stark reminder of the solitude that enveloped him. His heart ached with the weight of uncertainty, wondering if this missed connection would be his biggest regret. The memories of their last meeting played like a broken record in his mind, each moment tinged with longing and a sense of unfinished business as he gazed out at the vast expanse of water. He couldn't shake the feeling that something important had slipped through his fingers, leaving him adrift in a sea of what-ifs and maybes. The setting sun cast a golden hue over the horizon, painting a bittersweet picture of what could have been. Shadow, hounds, endless void out the window. You can hardly tell whether there is some kind of space whizzing past, or trees, or the gullet of some fantastically huge animal. Being able to see the stars helps, but the roof of the car keeps getting in the way. The landscape keeps shifting from open to covered. You think you remember Mom saying you would be driving through some forest soon. You can't sleep. Days in the car, and everything is stiff and sore. A few more hours, they say, like they mean it. I mean, you knew it would be a long trip. Cross country is a long way to go. But staring out a small window at passing scenery that largely doesn't change from state to state is mind-numbingly boring. A flicker in the corner of your eye, but you know better than to turn your head. You might be tired, 3/4 asleep, but you know you aren't seeing things. Your heart speeds up. Your breaths quicken. You strain your peripheral vision to get a better idea of what is running alongside the car. Again, always at night, especially in the darkest places, a nightmare of sleek muscles, open, panting jaws, and long legs ending in what looks like razor-sharp claws, all ebony black, invisible if you looked at it dead on. No discerning features in the blackness. Nothing you could pinpoint to show someone else the demon dogs running next to the car. And yes, dogs. Sometimes it was just one. And how you know it's the same one all the time, you'll never be able to tell. Other times, there are several. Considering their color and tendency to sort of bleed or ooze over each other, it's impossible to tell exactly how many there are at times. They run constantly beside the car, seeming to brush up against it at times. They don't make any noise. You can't tell if they are physical things, though the fact no one else sees them and they disappear in any light says something. Their slavering jaws drip, though it doesn't smear on the glass, nor does their breath fog the windows. They just are. Nothing about them really screams menace, despite how they look. They don't pay attention to the occupants of the car much, don't seem to notice when you try to avoid their eyes. They run, eyes forward, coursing into the night with you. Suddenly, you see one dart off the road into the darker shadows under the trees. The others gather closer to the car, seeming to close ranks and become more alert as they run. You strain your eyes in the darkness, trying to pierce the void of the deepest shadows. What would they be running after? Some kind of prey? Some kind of threat? And a threat to whom? You or them? You slow your breathing as much as you can. Try to tune out the hush of the tires and the air conditioner. You try not to think about smothering your mother for that little snore cough she's doing. She really can't help it. It's just covering up. Was that a noise? A crunch scream in the distance? Damn it, there are too many smaller noises around, covering anything up. You start to pant and sweat, worried about what you did or didn't hear. You keep glancing at the rest of the pack, trying to read their body language. Is that a snarl? Is that one staring off into the woods or ahead of the car? Are they moving closer, more carefully, or picking up speed again and relaxing? An interminable amount of time later, the other shadow hound suddenly bounds out of the blackness ahead, turning sharply to take up his place in the pack again. You scan him, looking for any sign of what happened. Then you laugh at yourself, because how can you tell if a shadow is bleeding or hurt? You relax and start to drift off, finally lulled by the swaying of the car and the shushing of the tires. Your eyes close and you sleep. Weightlessness, briefly, then pain as you slam into the seats in front of you. Breathlessness as your body adjusts from being asleep to awake so abruptly. You scramble upright, or as upright as you can get, trying to get your bearings. The car is twisted around, now facing the woods across from where you were traveling. You can see skid marks, and the front of the car is all banged up, like you hit something. But there's nothing in the road, nothing in front of the vehicle. You check on your parents. They're fine, but look like they got knocked out during the crash. They are both bleeding a bit, but nothing seems serious. You try to gently wake them, but don't want to accidentally hurt them. You look around for your phone, remembering you need to call for help. As soon as your fingers touch it on the floorboard, you feel a growl in your chest. Then, you hear the deep grumbling from outside the car. Snapping upright, you look frantically around in front of the car, looking for whatever made that malicious sound. You see nothing until you catch a flicker in the corner of your eye. With dread, you make yourself focus on your peripheral vision, scared to see what is making the sound. It's big. You can almost catch glimpses of scales as it moves, gliding around the light. This one, whatever it is, does seem to have mass. You can see the trees shifting and swaying, like there is a breeze blowing through them, but only as it passes. The others are still as stone. You check quickly around and don't see any of the shadow hounds. Were they scouting for this thing, leading it to you somehow? Did this thing kill them all? Or did they run when it attacked your car? Because you're fairly certain this is what caused the collision. Impossible to tell. You couldn't even tell whether they acknowledged your presence or not on the road, other than as an object to race, a sound, a whistle that turns into a high-pitched giggle, a howl and shriek, all in one. It repeats around the little clearing, growing louder and more melodic, until it stops. Suddenly, you see the hounds lunging and leaping. Trying to keep track of the movement is impossible. You can only catch tiny fragments of glimpses from the corners of your eyes, but you can hear the yips and snarls, the sound of impact from the tussle. Eventually, there is a deeper, pain-filled snarl that rends the air, then crashing and banging through the trees as the high-pitched howl shriek begins again. This time, sounding triumphant, you sit there, breathing slowly as you strain to listen. A huff at the window, a brush of almost fur against that side of the car. You slide your eyes that way to see as much as you can out of the corner. The biggest hound, the one you consider the leader of the pack, stares back at you and slowly blinks. He nods and you nod back, grateful for the protection. Your parents start to stir and moan, and you remember your phone. You look down to dial 911 and glance back around you as you start to talk to the operator. You can see the pack out there, taking up a defensive perimeter. You sigh and relax, knowing you are safe from any more dangerous shadows. The Alpha stands to the side, taking up an outer perimeter watch. He looks back at the car, knowing that soon it will be time to bond with his mage. She's almost ready. The attack tonight was proof of that. But she is strong. She did not panic, did not scream. She trusted them. He knows they will have a strong bond. He grins fiercely showing all of his teeth. Yes, they will work nicely together. Black and white, the boardroom. 32 students awake in a dark room. The lights flash on. 32 fearful high school students scan their surroundings. They're in a square room. The walls are lovely nature murals. The floor is a large, square black and white checkerboard. And they're in costumes. 16 are black and 16 white. Esther starts the confused students' conversation. "Oh, my lord, where are we?" Barney, the school's head nerd, is dressed in black leather and a crown. "How did I got here?" Johnny, the high school star quarterback, is dressed in white leather and a king's crown. "We, nerd. How did we all get here?" Susie, head cheerleader, adorned in a dazzling black sequined dress and crown, clings to Johnny. "We were all at Dr. Gilbert's party." Jerry, "Right. I remember we all toasted the good doctor's birthday." Jill, "Yes, I can't recall much after that." Billy Joe, "The punch. I bet the punch was spiked." Sally, "How did I get dressed in this?" Mark and Ken are examining the walls, looking for an exit, only to find 2 bathroom door. Mayview Police The FBI Child Abduction Unit arrives at the Mayview City Police Department. Captain Montaigne, "I appreciate your rapid response." Agent Joseph Klein, "What have you got?" Captain, "There was a party at a Mayview High School mathematician's house on Friday night that the missing teens seem to have attended." Sergeant Billings, "Sir, they're being live streamed." Agent Klein makes a call. Agent Newton, "I need your unit to find this channel's origin. I just linked to you." Live chess. A placard on the wall reads, "Welcome to live chess. 1. This is a standard 12-hour game of chess. 2. Your costume denotes your position and side. 3. Your kings are Johnny and Barney, both well-ranked players. 4. Breaks are 10 minutes each hour. The teens are quiet momentarily as they read, then break into a confusing garble of voices until Ben, a well-known school bully, yells, "Shut up, all of you." They do. He continues, "Who the hell you think you are? I will knock your teeth out." A loud crack sounds out. Ben collapses and slides down a wall onto the floor. Blood oozes from his mouth. Screams fill the room. A door opens, and in walks another student, Henry. A masked man drags Ben back inside the door, then closes it. "Henry, what the hell is going on?" Overhead, a voice breaks in. "I'm the director and judge. I don't tolerate dissidents. Now that's settled, let's begin, shall we? Take your positions." White on the wall's time clock side. The frightened, crying teens start moving into position, Sally crying and shaking. "I don't know where to go." King Barney, over there in the second row with Susie, Jill, Mary, Gary, Ken, and Mike. "You're all pawns." Voice, "Well done. The clock will tick down from 12 hours for for each team. It starts and stops with each move. The winning team lives, or shall I say, those left standing will live. Kimmy, the white king-side light-squared bishop, LSB, cries out, "What does he mean?" Voice, the game is one of death, not of capturing players, resulting in another wave of mass hysteria. White King Johnny. What the hell? Voice, let the game begin. King Johnny, make your move. A dual digital timer on the wall starts counting down. W, chart 11.59. B. Opening. Johnny, the HS quarterback, confused and shaking, instantly decides pawn to E4. Voice. Johnny, they're more than pawns. They're your classmates. They're living people, at least for the moment. Brings another burst of loud conversing, screams, and crying. Mary runs, screaming, "I can't do this!" A loud crack echoes throughout the room. Mary halts, drops to the ground, and cringes down into a fetal position. Voice, Mary, that was a warning. Get back, now. She doesn't move. I said, now, Mary. Another crack erupts, and the wall splinters beside her head. Mary screams, then runs back to her square. Johnny, G, Gary, move to the E4 square. Gary, W, where's that? Johnny, 2 squares in front of you. The white one. Gary steps up to the center of the board. Barney, C5. Elizabeth, move up 2 squares. She quickly responds, that's right, the dark square. Voice, very good. See how easy it is to play and obey. Johnny, you're up. Johnny, knight to F3. Henry, do you play? Henry, yes. Susie, Sally, excuse me, please. And he moves up 2 and over 1 square, as knights do. Barney, knight to C6. Sarah, move behind Elizabeth on the white square. Johnny, Billy, you're our light squared bishop. Step in front of me to E2. BE2. Strategy. Barney, may I ask a question? Voice, of course. Your clock is ticking. Barney, if we capture a piece, what happens to the player? Voice, again, it's not a capture game. It is a game of life and death. Barney, the person dies? Voice, I think you know the answer. Black King Barney. Barney, what happens if there is a checkmate without any captures? Voice, the winning team walks away. The losing team, well, they don't. Barney, can we huddle? Voice, 2 heads are better than 1. Barney, everyone who plays chess, raise your hand. The black team's bishops, Tamer and Samuel, the knights, Michael and Sarah, and 1 rook, Matthew, raise their hands along with 3 pawns, Eve, Miriam, and Luke. Barney, okay, let's huddle and discuss our next move. No one moves. Voice, you can converse during your move. The bishops and knights slowly and hesitantly walk over to Barney. Barney, how you doing? Tamar, tears flowing. Scared shitless, of course. The others nod in agreement. Barney, I didn't want to talk about the move. I know the best move with Johnny's Sicilian defense. I want to discuss strategy. If we capture a person, Samuel, they will be shot. Sarah, who is this psychopath? Luke, his voice is masked and he knows us. Michael, a teacher? Barney, I think so, but our absence must have the FBI involved. So, if we can draw out the game with no captures, Tamar, kill this sick we'll murder them. Barney, right, so let's make moves to prolong the game. Sarah, sounds like a good plan. The others nod in agreement. Barney, okay, good. Michael, let's play D6. It's a good counter to the Sicilian, and no chance for a kill. Barney, my thought as well. The teens shake in agreement. Billy Joe, Johnny is my boyfriend and aggressive in football and chess. He's good and will go for the win. Sarah, no, he won't. Billy Joe, what makes you think that? Sarah, you're on our side. You die if he wins. The players return to their positions. Barney, D6. Miriam, move up one step. W23.55.09. B23.03. Johnny. Rose, you're our king's knight. Move in front of Jill. Barney, knight to F6 for you, Michael. Michael, got it. Samuel, you're moving so fast. Barney, it's just the opening. We can slow down during the mid-game. That's expected. Bishop Samuel. Okay, that makes sense. He may get mad if look to be stalling. Johnny, let's castle. Jill, move beside me, and I'll move to the inside beside you. Barney, shall we fianchetto kingside? Tamar, yes, good call. Black king. Barney, okay, Daniel, step up one square to G6. Next, light squared Bishop Billy will move behind you to G7. And then we will castle. Johnny, Mary, step up one to back up Gary. D3. Blacks, Bishop Daniel slides over to G7. White King Johnny. We're still opening. Our stance in martial arts terms. Bishop Kimmy, slide in front of Bishop Billy. Black King Barney and Rook Matthew switch sides to castle. FBI, Captain Montaigne. It has been 24 hours since 34 high school students were abducted. Dr. Gilbert's neighbors have only revealed that he had a large cargo truck that was heard leaving his residence in the early morning hours after the party, then disappeared. Agent Klein, Dr. Gilbert is a millionaire who does not need to work. He withdrew vast amounts of cash over the last few years and spent his weekends away. Where to? We are seeking to ascertain, along with tracing the video feed. We see the students are all alive, except one. Live chess has gone viral. We are hesitant to shut it down, as he may retaliate against the kids. Officer Dave. Yes, he shot one, and Celia is missing. Agent Klein. Perhaps not. Video analysis seems to indicate a scam, a fake death, like in the movies. He has a degree in mathematics and is a psychologist. Officer Gentry, a sick one. He is tormenting them. Agent Klein. Chess has 32 pieces, 16 per side. If you promote a pawn to the other side, you get a piece of your choice. Celia may be in waiting as the extra queen if one side promotes a pawn. Agent. Obviously, our best is to track his video feed. He is bouncing off dark web torrent sites worldwide. He is good. Our cybercrime unit is on it. We will keep you updated, Captain Montaigne. We will continue our local search for sites able to house a 50 by 50 foot room and use infrared heat sensing, although they may be underground. What's new with the West search progress, Kelly? Mid-game, Johnny. Okay, now we're in the mid-game, and we're at an advantage to strike in the middle. But I don't want anyone else to die, so let's just make a non-confrontational move. Queen Esther. Barney and I are dating. He is brilliant, uses his mind, and despises violence. We should just hop around. I can step over one and back up Bishop Kimmy, Rose. That looks aggressive, forcing a dark bishop trade, but we don't have to go through with it, Johnny. Perfect. Queen Esther, step over to QC1, Barney. Let's huddle. Okay, my friends. It looks as they want to force a bishop trade and end up with their Q in front of me, Billy Joe. Don't take any chances with Johnny. He will save himself first. He will pick his team and friends over me. Barney. Okay, we can avoid a trade. Matthew. How? Barney. Rook Matthew. Step to the side. One for rook to e8. King Johnny. Good move by them. They don't want a trade or fight. The clock reads W23 Uzo Biwer Suinti. Voice. Break time. A wall opens, revealing a large table with a feast of food and drinks. The bathroom doors pop open. One is labeled guys and the other gals. Break time. The young women gather. Johnny runs to Billy Joe, and they hug, as do other couples. Billy Joe. Oh, Johnny, I'm so scared. Johnny. We all are, Billy Joe. We all are. Barney. I'm famished. He and Esther walk to the snack table. Esther. I need to pee. Be right back. The Black King walks up to the Black King. Johnny greets him with, "What's up, nerd?" Barney. We need to work together and figure this out. Johnny. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. What do you have in mind? He takes the last bite of a hot dog. Barney. If we make a capture, the person dies. Johnny. Right. So, we need to move around, keep the game going. Barney. That's logical, but I'm sure he thought of that. Johnny. All we can do is try. Barney. Perhaps the cops will find us. Johnny. The FBI is hunting for us. Barney. Right. So let us keep the game going till time runs out. Johnny. Okay. We need not to let any side run out their clock. Esther. How do we do that? Billy Joe. Make our moves on 10-minute intervals. Johnny, perfect. Barney, that's 6 moves per hour times 24 hours, which comes out to 120 moves each. Esther, let's make them 15 minutes. Barney, I agree. That way, we maximize the game length. Esther, watch the clock and pray the FBI finds us. Upstairs, Dr. Gilbert smiles. Breaks over. Back to your positions. King Johnny, your move. Johnny. Hey, Barney. Barney. Yeah, Johnny. I'm really sorry. And I know I can speak for my football team. I'm truly sorry for all the nerd harassment we've given you and your friends over the years. Barney. Ah, heck. Water under the bridge, Johnny. Let's just get through this and let bygones be bygones. The two smile and walk to their sides of the board, both holding back tears to move to loose scenario. The black and white kings and their teams continue the game, making move after move without players attacking other players. After the 90th move, and with only a few hours left, Dr. Gilbert, whose name was still unknown to the students and video stream audience, finally spoke. Voice. Well, you all have been having fun, right? I'm not stupid, you know. I have been building and planning this game for years. Do you all realize that if this game ends in a draw or stalemate, in other words, when the clock runs out and no kills have been made, do you realize both teams lose? Do you understand what happens to the losers? Barney, no one goes home? Voice, correct. Johnny, what happens if one person is sacrificed? Voice, the team losing the piece loses. If there's a recapture, piece value decides. Break time, it's pizza. W01 4506, B1 4609. The exhausted teens had stopped crying many long hours ago. Their mood devolved into hopelessness. Most feel numb. Their conversation was replaced with inward personal reflection. Life before this horrid weekend. Football game fun and laughs. Moments with their friends, their loves, and their families. Upon this new revelation, a lose-lose scenario where at least half will die. The crying and severe depression returned as their end was near. The physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted teens collapse on the checkered floor and devour 16 large pizzas. Billy Joe, so much for our stalemate plan. We're screwed. Now what are we going to do? Barney, someone needs to be sacrificed for the rest of us? Esther, no, it's not that simple. Henry, she's right. One sacrifice means the losing team. All of them don't make it home. Billy Joe, Lordy, what are we going to do? Johnny, flip a coin, the loser takes a hit. It doesn't matter who dies first, as all 16 will be sacrificed. Barney flips. Johnny guesses wrong. Henry, I'll do it. Rose is in a position to take me. FBI, Captain. We just got a call from Jerry's Pizza. in Littleford. Somebody just picked up an order of 16 pizzas. Jerry said that was highly unusual. We're running the license plate run now. Agent Klein, get the SWAT team in the chopper. Sergeant Newton, Captain, we have an address. End game. W000-100. B00010. Billy Joe. Time to make the call, Barney. Barney, I can't. Billy Joe. Tears in her eyes. I know. It is either half of us or all of us. Barney. Rose, walk over to Henry's Square. Rose, tears flowing. No, I won't be able to live with myself. Billy Joe. None of us will. Rose, none of us. Barney, angered. We'll all forever be haunted. Night Rose slowly moves up 2 squares, over one, and steps into Henry's Square. Oh, Henry, I'm so sorry. Henry. Rose, I volunteered. You're not to blame. Voice. Barney, you're up. Barney. What do you mean? Voice. It's time to slay. Barney. So, go ahead. Live with your cruelty. Voice. Oh, not I, your kingship. Barney. What do you mean? Voice. You as king chose. You as king follow through. Barney. I will not murder. Voice. You may have Rose perform the deed. Barney. I will not. Voice. Do you choose a draw? Barney. Help everyone. What do I do? Voice. Tick, tick, tick. Barney. Let's vote. A team vote. Voice. Ah, a king chooses democracy. How noble. Barney. Those in favor of a draw walk to the other team. Those who want me to murder Henry and everyone on their side dies. Remain here. The room, filled with stunned, angered, and crying teens, suddenly turns into a loud, confusing uproar. Miriam breaks the hysteria, yelling out, "Quiet, everyone, please." The room quiets. Miriam, well known for her environmental protests, continues, "I say all of us. Personally, I could not live with myself, knowing I chose to be part of a murder, to murder any of you. I suggest we all join hands and refuse to put up with this madman's sick game any longer." Gary, no way. We don't all have to die, only half. Sally takes Gary in her arms and hugs him. He struggles and then collapses, crying. Quiet mumbling now fills the room. Matthew takes Miriam's hand into his, followed by Rose, until finally 32 teens sit in the middle of a sizable black and white game board. Some have been friends since early childhood, some lovers, some enemies, for various reasons that seem silly now. 32 colored teens, white, yellow, red, black, and brown, sit quietly, looking around at their peers' multi-ethnic faces. They are emotionally spent, feeling their common humanity and finding comfort in each other. Dr. Gilbert sits upstairs, smiling. Millions worldwide are fixed on their screens, devices streaming live chess, awaiting the endgame finale, Breaking news. 34 students who recently went missing were found this morning after millions worldwide watched in horror. Live chess, a divisive game attempting to pit Mayview High School students against each other. The teens, previously at odds with each other, joined forces to devise various strategies. They refused the cruel psychopath's rules. Dr. Gilbert conducted what he termed a psychological experiment, and a success beyond his pre-game hypothesis of teen behavior. He remains at large. All the students were found alive. 1 year later, 32 students awake in a dark room. The silent car. Sarah slid through the closing subway doors just in time, glancing through the windows of the platform, happy to be heading home. The soft chime alerted the passengers that the train was leaving her stop. She sunk into the closest seat, feeling the cold plastic chill her legs through her jeans, sighing as she rubbed at her tired eyes with her palms. It felt good to finally sit down after such a long day. Her body lurched gently as she was transported through the underground tunnel. She had a long ride, even with the trains running express after midnight, and all she wanted to do was sleep. Her usual routine involved reading books to stay awake on her commute home. But even holding her book felt like too much work tonight. The car was silent, but there were more people than she would have expected. There must have been some kind of event, because usually the only other people taking her subway this late at night were the kind that you had to worry about. But they looked like regular people, just a few stragglers making their way back home. Glancing around, she noticed the other passengers were seated quietly, probably just as tired as her. Their eyes were fixed blankly ahead on the seat in front of them, or watching the dark, steady blur of the tunnel pass by outside of the train windows. Sarah settled in for the long ride, slumping deeper into her seat. She opened her book, staring intently at the first paragraph. She willed the comprehension of the words to come to her, but the words just looked like symbols, refusing to form meaning in her brain. Sarah sighed, closing her book again. She glanced up, making eye contact with a middle-aged woman across the row. Automatically, she turned her gaze away, but something felt off. The woman was still looking at her, gripping a handbag on her lap. Sarah snuck another peek, wondering what this lady's problem was. Her eyes were open, but she was staring past Sarah, at the space where she sat, motionless. Feeling uneasy, Sarah leaned forward slightly. Are you okay?" Sarah called out gently. The woman looked like a statue, not blinking or moving, and urgency cut through Sarah's tiredness. No response. Sarah felt her cheeks get hot, as she tended to flush red when she was nervous. This was weird. In a bad way. She turned to the next person she could see, finding a college-aged young man beside her. He wore baggy jeans, and had a big pair of earphones around his neck. His eyes were fixed forward with the same vacant stare. Her voice shook now. "Hello?" A cold sweat flashed across the top of her lip. She swiped at it as she stood abruptly. The book that had been in her lap tumbled to the floor. Panicked, she made her way to the next person. She checked passenger after passenger, professionally dressed men and women, younger-looking students or interns, even a woman with a little dog on her lap. Horrified, she found that the dog was frozen too. She started with polite taps and a low voice, and built up to violently shaking shoulders, pleading for someone to just say or do anything. She dreaded the same look on every face, present yet utterly absent. The lights were all on, but no one was home. The subway hit a turn, and Sarah was propelled sideways. She grabbed a rail, gripping the cool metal and using it to help her keep her balance as she rushed to the end of the car. She shot a hand out for the door handle that connected her car to the next one. Her stomach dropped as the handle refused to budge. Locked. She pounded on the glass, but the next car appeared equally motionless. The train lights flickered, and for a brief moment, she could not see as the car was plunged into darkness. She held her breath as her heart hammered against her ribs, threatening to jump out of her chest and escape. When the lights returned, her skin crawled with dread. Every passenger was now standing perfectly still, staring directly at her. She backed against the door, her mind spiraling. "Please," she whispered. She wanted to close her eyes. She couldn't, though. She was too afraid of what might happen if she looked away. Instead of words, she heard whispers. Soft at first, like the jostling and whooshing noises from the train in motion, but quickly growing louder. They filled the car, echoing unintelligible murmurs. The voices were angry, thick with accusation in her ears. What had she done to upset them? "Stop!" Sarah cried. She jammed her fingers into her ears, plugging them. It didn't help. The whispers grew louder and louder, judging her and taunting her and blaming her. For what? Suddenly, the subway jolted sharply to the right, knocking her off balance. Sarah fell. She felt herself falling for too long, waiting for the impact of the dirty car floor. She gasped sharply, jerking awake. Her head had slipped against the rail between her seat and the subway door. The train rocked as it slowed down, approaching her station. She heard the familiar subway voice announce, "This is Franklin Avenue. Transfer is available to the 2 and 3 trains." Sarah glanced around, frantic. Passengers chatted softly, scrolling through phones or listening to music. Normalcy surrounded her. Her heart still raced. She didn't trust it yet. But had it just been a dream? She took deep breaths trying to will her panic to go down. Be calm. You are safe, she thought, just exhausted and stressed out from work. She gathered her belongings, relieved to see her book on her lap, not scattered across the floor. As she stepped off of the train, her nose and lungs were assaulted by the belly, muggy platform air. The grimy realness of the familiar gross platform felt like it was bringing her back to reality. Her legs were a little shaky, but she was grateful to be moving, to be able to leave and put the strange nightmare behind her. Sarah made her way out of the station towards the stairs. She climbed up and out, feeling her phone vibrate. She pulled her phone out of her pocket, squinting at the notifications. Someone texted her from an unknown number. She opened the message and read, "Wake up." Sarah froze, her pulse quickening again. Anxiety surged back, sharp and biting. Her fingers trembled slightly as she glanced back toward the departing subway. She saw them again, watching her. Through the windows, all of the passengers stood motionless, facing her. She felt the hairs on the back of her neck raise and waited until the train vanished into the tunnel and the people were out of view. Sarah ran up the remaining stairs, emerging onto the street, desperate for the cool, open air and clarity. She continued to run, pumping her legs as the sense of unease lingered. She glanced repeatedly at the people passing by her on the sidewalk, wondering if they were going to have that haunting, identical expression on their faces. She made it to her walk-up apartment, sprinting up 4 flights of narrow stairs, quickly unlocking the door and shoving herself inside. Sarah double-locked the door and pressed her forehead into the wood as she looked out of the peephole. What if they followed her home? She waited, forcing herself to breathe as quietly as possible to see if they would appear at the top of the stairs on her floor. "Come on," she said out loud to herself. "Get it together." She opened her phone again, rereading the unsettling message. "Wake up," she typed back cautiously. "Who is this?" The reply was instant. "You know who. You saw us." Her breath caught in her throat, fingers gripping the phone so tightly her knuckles whitened. Sarah tried to will the nightmare away, but the vacant faces, whispered accusations, and the locked subway doors all followed her. She stumbled to her window, looking down at the street below. Cars rushed past, their honking sounds reaching her window. New Yorkers moved briskly at their quick walking pace, looking like dozens of little ants with places to be. As she stared, her reflection in the window twisted subtly. For a split second, her own eyes stared back, wide and vacant, mirroring the subway passengers. Sarah gasped, jerking away from the glass. She collapsed heavily on her couch, pressing her shaking hands into the cushions to try and ground herself. There's no way that was real. she told herself. Her vision was tunneling, blurred by exhaustion and fear. Her breathing came manually. In and out, she willed herself. In and out. In and out. In and falling to conclusions. Fear can make you do crazy things. Cry, laugh, scream, even kill. At this precise moment, it is causing a man named Joe to run for his life. It is also causing 7 members of an unknown faction to chase him. Joe doesn't know where he is going, only that he has to get away. His chest pulses in and out as his body tries to drag in air to compensate for all the running. His legs ache as he pushes them to go faster. A voice in his head urges him on. We need to go faster. Shut up. You think I don't know that? It's your fault we're running in the first place. Gosh, a guy can't have a little fun. You killed those guys. Correction, you killed those guys. As far as anyone else knows, I am just a figment of your imagination. Besides, now you can be certain that the men who killed your family have been punished for their actions. I didn't need your help. The police would have handled it. Now these guys are chasing us. Less complaining, more running. Joe continues sprinting through the autumn-colored trees, looking for an escape. As he taps into his second wind, he sees sunlight beaming down ahead. He gets to a bright clearing, a good distance ahead of his pursuers. The beginnings of a sigh of relief melt into a sigh of despair. On the other side of the very narrow leaf-filled clearing is a very wide, rock-filled gorge. He skids to the edge, kicking a few dozen leaves over the edge. Gasping for air, with his hands on his knees, he watches as the leaves slowly pinwheel out of sight. A good 1,000-foot drop followed by slopes of jagged rock. I'll definitely feel that in the morning. We could make it. Shut up. No, we can't. I could make it. Well, I can't. He takes a step back and puts his hands behind his back as he tries to catch his breath. As he turns around, a single man wearing green, brown, and black fatigues skids into the clearing. He sees Joe and raises his assault rifle. The gun trembles slightly as the soldier trains it on him. Joe watches as the nervous soldier's finger tightens slightly on the trigger. A single bead of sweat slides down the soldier's forehead as he begins to talk. We're gonna need you to come with us. I'm afraid I can't do that. That's right. Tell him. We aren't going anywhere with him. Please, we're not gonna hurt you. I find that hard to believe. If I remember correctly, you guys were shooting at me not too long ago. Come on. There's only one of him. We can take him. We just want to talk to you. Do some tests. Ask some questions. What if you don't like what you hear? What if your tests and your questions don't get you the answers that you want? What then? Why haven't we killed him yet? Would you shut up already? Who are you talking to? Nobody, okay? I think I'll decline. Wow, I didn't think you had it in ya. That is not an option! A different voice booms from within the trees. The rest of the group bursts into the clearing, all wearing matching fatigues. Their assault rifles are all trained on him. Just answer me one question. Why do you have to be able to explain everything? Why do you have to know how everything works? Joe yells with tears of anger welling up in his eyes. Are you crying? What a baby. How about less crying and more killing? If it isn't normal, let's chase it down and shoot at it with automatic weapons and force it to cooperate. Find out how it works by any means necessary. You people disgust me. If you don't kill them soon, I will. Would you shut up already, sir? I don't know who you are talking to, but we can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way. Well, as my mother always said, if it's not hard, then it is not worth doing. Whoa, what are you doing? They are looking for a reason to kill us. If they kill me, you die too. As Joe says this, he slowly takes his hands from behind his back. A 40-inch, sleek, razor-sharp, black katana is held firmly in each hand. As they see the blades, their fingers squeeze the triggers. Volleys of bullets fly towards Joe, each trying to reach the target first. His swords move lightning fast as he takes into account where on his body they are aiming and tries to deflect as many bullets as possible. Despite his efforts, he's breathing through a couple new holes by the time they need to reload. They watch anxiously as Joe stumbles forward. The sword in his left hand sticks into the ground and keeps him from falling all the way to the ground. He leans heavily on the sword as ragged, shallow breaths tear out of him. Dark red blood stains his shirt and pants in various places. He sways, but manages to stand, leaving the sword embedded in the ground. He tries to look at them, but the 7 soldiers double into 14. He shakes his head and tries again, but the 14 soldiers are now swimming in front of his vision. He settles on focusing on the group as a whole, seeing the forest, not the trees. Did I pass the test? Oh well. My answer is still no. If you want my body, you'll have to fetch it. Joe slurs. You are seriously losing it. You are going to get us killed. No, don't! Joe spreads his arms and falls backwards off of the cliff. The soldiers dash to the edge and see him falling. He watches as the edge of the cliff and their faces shrink away from him. The wind whips his clothes wildly as it accelerates past him. He closes his eyes, slows his breathing, and concentrates. Suddenly, the sound of the wind slows and then stops. He opens his eyes and sees that he is now floating in mid-air. A faint glow and a quiet hum emanates from his left hand. He looks down and sees that about 5 feet under him is one particularly sharp shard of black rock that would have ended up right through his chest. He also notices that his vision has blacked out on the edge. Something was wrong. What did you do? I took over. It's obvious that you were on a suicide mission with that little stunt you pulled. I did too much work to get this body to just let you destroy us like this. He contemplates his grisly death for a second before reorienting himself. Using the power from his hands, he zooms back up towards the cliff edge. His head pops up over the ridge as the 7 soldiers are leaving the clearing. They walk slowly and lackadaisically back into the trees in a single file line. Apparently, his guaranteed death is good enough for them. His anger intensifies with this nonchalant disregard for him as a person. The fact that they don't really care about retrieving the body pisses him off. They even left his sword exactly where it got stuck in the ground. The nails on his right hand dig into his palm as his grip tightens on the sword. The angry look on his face morphs into a grin. He is going to enjoy what is about to happen. He floats back onto the cliff and lands silently on the ground. He quietly picks up his second sword and zips to the soldier, bringing up the rear. In one swift moment, he puts one sword through his back and uses the second sword to separate his head from his body. The head spins wildly as it tumbles into a nearby pile of leaves. He pushes the soldier's body out of the way and heads towards the second soldier. The second soldier gets cut down in one stroke, starting from his right shoulder and ending at his left hip. As the top half of the body slides away diagonally from the bottom half, Joe sees that the other soldiers have become aware of his presence. Their eyes widen and their mouths hang open as they realize the man that they thought was dead is still very much alive. Joe uses the moment of hesitation to close in. The third soldier is split vertically in half as Joe brings the sword right up through the middle of him, splitting him in half like a deli sandwich. He steps through the space the third soldier's body once occupied and heads toward the fourth soldier. He rams both swords into the soldier's abdomen and sees the soldier's eyes widen with pain. He pulls both swords in opposite directions, shredding the soldier's midsection. He lifts his foot and kicks the soldier, sending his body to the ground with a thump. 4 down, 3 to go. The remaining 3 soldiers spread out and raise their assault rifles. Not this time, Joe snarls at them. Not like this. It was never supposed to be like this. He spins the swords one time in his hands as he steps over the fourth soldier's quickly cooling body. Raising the swords in his hands, he throws them at the 2 outside soldiers. Both soldiers are struck between the eyes before they even get off a shot. The force of the swords knock them both backwards. One of the swords plunges into the ground, propping the fifth soldier's body up at a 15-degree angle. Gravity slowly pulls the body down the blood-soaked blade. The other blade pins the sixth soldier head first to the gnarled trunk of a nearby tree. This time, gravity works quicker and splits his skull as his body slumps to the ground. Joe, now weaponless, bravely strides toward the last soldier. As the final soldier goes to shoot, Joe grabs the end of his gun and quickly shoves it up. The single shot the soldier gets off intertwines with the painful crunch of bones as the gun sight collides with his nose. The shot flies harmlessly into the air above their heads. The final soldier stumbles backwards, struggling to pull air through his bloodied nostrils. The strap attached to the rifle, still in Joe's hand, keeps him from falling. Joe pulls the barrel of the gun down a couple of inches and jams it under the soldier's chin. The soldier is still dazed from his new breathing impairment and doesn't even realize what is happening. The automatic fire perforating his brain quickly takes care of his need to breathe. Joe's grin widens into a smile as he looks at his work. They were right to fear me, Joe thinks to himself. Not like this. He prepares to go retrieve his swords when a mysterious pain stops him in his tracks. His head feels like it is about to split open. He slams his eyes shut, trying to not pass out. When he reopens his eyes, all he can see is a bright orange light. He blinks a couple times and realizes that he is on his back, staring up at the setting sun. He looks down and sees a sharp, blood-stained rock protruding from his stomach, looking like a blood volcano just sprouted out of his chest. His mind struggles to come to terms with what has just happened, but his eviscerated midsection makes it hard. He tries to speak, but all that comes out of his mouth is a splatter of blood. It was all in his mind. No miraculous survival, no sweet revenge, no daring escape. Just a terrified man sprawled, broken and bloodied, at the bottom of a rocky gorge. He lived his life in fear, and it was this fear that eventually drove him to his death. At least the voice in his head is finally quiet. His gasping breaths slow, as the last thing he sees is the sun slipping beneath the horizon. Fear can make you do crazy things. Laugh, scream, even kill. Right about now, it was the last thought that crossed Joe's mind as his brain seeped out of his shattered skull. Late for rest, this story centers around death. I'm late, she thought, as she ran for the bus. Her friends would say that was her life's motto. Amelia scrambled on the bus, trying not to jostle anyone. She had been given a final warning about not getting to work on time and knew her boss was serious. She was good at her job, but this city had over 2 million people. She could be replaced. In fact, she was one of many autopsy technicians who were employed at her job. She enjoyed working with her colleagues and liked working under her supervisor. The problem was, on top of being a natural procrastinator, she was in school full-time while working full-time. But this was her last semester. Her goal was to become an ME. She had always been interested in true crime as a kid and spent her free time watching the ID channel. Her first interest was in forensic science because she wanted to investigate crime scenes. But death and dead bodies never bothered her. And she started working in the morgue as an undergrad, which spurred her interest in forensic pathology. It was then that she learned she was gifted in reading corpses. All those years of hearing about petechiae, cyanosis, and lividity became useful. She could read bodies like a book. That, combined with her proclivity for stockpiling information about diseases and murder, made her a veritable glossary of forensic pathology. Amelia was well liked at work because she was knowledgeable and friendly. Plus, she had a great work ethic while at work. It was outside of work that she struggled with procrastination. She just struggled to stay focused. If she had an assignment to do that required research, she'd end up going down rabbit holes on a side topic that caught her eye. She would know it's time to stop. But if a deadline wasn't impending, she knew she could get away with pushing something off in favor of exploring her current interest. This habit is what created such a wealth of knowledge for her. Unfortunately, it also made her have to do everything last minute or even late. Since becoming an adult and responsible for her own finances, she has never filed her taxes on time. 2 years in a row, she forgot altogether. To compensate, Amelia didn't get much sleep and often slept through her alarms. It was probably her body and brain's way to ensure she got enough sleep. Her boss didn't care how good of a worker she was if she continuously showed up late. She understood that, yet she still struggled to alter her habits. On top of that, she couldn't stay late because of her grad research. She had a thesis to finish and defend. Amelia lived in a state of guilt and shame over not being better at time management, but figured she'd have time to learn how to get better at it later. Today, it was important to not be late. There was still a possibility of making it on time. She missed her first bus, but ran full speed 6 blocks to catch a different one. She had a chance to rest before her stop, and then she'd have to sprint again for the light rail. It was a tight plan, requiring more physical exertion than she was used to, especially outside in Houston in the summer. But it was better to turn up drenched in sweat than late. For once, Amelia made it to work on time. And surprisingly, she wasn't sweating or even tired. Smiling to herself, she walked into the lab, expecting a few comments razzing her for unusual timeliness. However, everyone looked stern. This wasn't unusual in a morgue where many unfortunate events cause bodies to end up here. It was especially hard when it was a child or a victim of a violent assault. Or worse, a child who was a victim of a violent assault. Occasionally, a friend or relative of one of her colleagues came through. Everyone was very professional, but an underlying awkwardness was always present. Amelia approached the body they were centered around. She looked down at herself. Shock doesn't begin to describe what she felt. Confusion, of course, was also a dominant reaction. Was this a prank? The level of cruelty involved in doing something like this as a prank was beyond her comprehension. "What the fuck?" she yelled. For once, she was not late. And this is how they treat her. No one turned to look at her or even responded. "How the fuck did you do this?" Doubt started to flood in. She grew up in the foster system. Did she have a sister she didn't know about? Did she have a twin? "Who is this?" she yelled as her frustration and fear grew. Still, no one met her eye or replied. "When did she arrive?" her colleague Nate asked. "Half an hour ago," Mike, her supervisor, replied. For once, she was early. "What the actual fuck, guys? You are going too far," she screamed. She liked these people. How could they be so cruel? Was this supposed to be some kind of lesson for her extreme tardiness? Like an extreme example of what could happen if she continued living her life, always running late. Ironically, I believe she was hit by a bus while she was running for a different one, Mike suggested. "Wow, death by bus," Angela quipped. "This is sick. It's not funny." "Who is this?" she cried. Mike stepped back right into her, literally into her. It was slowly dawning on Amelia that this wasn't a prank. She looked down at the corpse that was obviously hers. She was dead. She was hit by a bus. It was unfathomable, but she still had a lot to do. "I don't think there is a need for an autopsy," Mike announced. Slowly, everyone turned away, and Amelia took the chance to step closer to her body. "Wait!" she exclaimed. No one listened. Amelia remembered her last moments. She had gotten in an argument with a man near the bus stop. His attempt at catcalling was graphic and disturbing, and she told him, "Shut the fuck up, creep." He retorted with a comment suggesting she needed to be raped. "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Amelia demanded. "You're an uptight bitch who needs a good dicking down whether you want one or not," he replied. "I don't have time for this," she mumbled to herself while looking around for help. She saw a cop car across the street and started to head that way. She had to pause because a bus was rapidly approaching her stop. the last thing she remembers is being pushed. "This was not an accident," she yelled at her colleagues. Desperation set in as she realized this would be recorded as an accident instead of the murder it was. Legally, it was probably manslaughter, but when you're the one killed, you feel murdered, not manslaughtered. Her colleagues continued to go about their business as Mike filled out the paperwork. "Please, look again, Mike," she said as she peered over his shoulder. She watched him type the details, or her death, which she found the most surreal event of the day. "Please," she whispered again, before going to look at her body for evidence that she had been pushed. She needed someone to turn herself over. She even reached out herself. But in her non-corporeal state, there was nothing she could do. She cried tearlessly as she lost hope. "I feel we should do something more for Amelia," Angela said. "Like plan her funeral?" Mike suggested. She had no family. "I was thinking more along the lines of an autopsy," she offered. "Amelia would have wanted one." It's true. Even if she hadn't suspected an attack, she still would want an autopsy. She had already planned for her body to be donated to the body farm when she died. She had lived a life of science and wanted to continue in death. "You're right," Mike said. Before getting up, he changed the paperwork to justify an autopsy. Amelia waited as patiently as she could until it happened. Her body was finally rolled over, and there were marks indicating that she wasn't just pushed, but punched in the back with 2 fists. "Holy shit," Angela remarked. Stunned, the whole team began discussing possibilities as Amelia felt herself being pulled away. "No, I don't want to go," she cried. This would be the final rabbit hole she'd ever go down, and the most important one to her. She fought against this invisible force tugging her away because her interest was piqued. She had to know that they solved this crime. The cops needed to know to look at security cameras so they could find this guy. She physically felt like she was in a game of tug of war, with her soul being the middle of the rope. Finally, one last tug pulled her away. There's at least one place she could not be late for: the mannequin in the lake. Johnny and Sally didn't believe me when I told them the mannequin in the water had saved me from drowning. Well, something had pulled me down, and I suspected it had been her, but I didn't mention that part to my friends. Instead, I pointed to the exact spot where I believed she'd pulled me up from the rough Lake Michigan water. They laughed out loud. It's true. Her arms swayed forward and back. I swear. I motioned with my arms the same way the mannequin had done so. The marshmallow that was supposed to be for my s'more slipped out of my fingers. Sand covered my piece. For God's sake, I'd been looking forward to making them with my buddy and his girl. Sally guffawed. You're so stupid, You know that? Plus, if you would have gotten more practice in class, you wouldn't have almost drowned. Maybe I shouldn't be here with your stupid asses, I said, glowering at Johnny, who'd had the bright idea of skipping school. Just because he'd said, but I knew why. Because of her. Johnny had skipped school so many times that the teachers probably didn't even care to find out where he was. Me, though, this was only my second time. The first time was just a few days ago, the day the mannequin had saved me. I hurled the marshmallow into the water and watched as it floated away. But when the tip of a mannequin's fingers sprang out of the water and took my piece in, a shiver ran down from the top of my head to the end of my toes. Did you guys see that? Bro! Here. Johnny split his s'more in half, the gooey center stretching like fresh out of the deep fryer mozzarella sticks. My buddy Johnny and I had been friends for 4 years now, since first grade, my only friend. All the other kids sided with him always, but when I tried talking to them, they'd ignore me. Yes, I longed for more friends, and yes, I felt a little jealous of Johnny's charisma, but I knew I was lucky to have Johnny in my life, my only friend. I helped him with his schoolwork, and he got me out of trouble. Always took the blame, no matter what shenanigans we got into. And this time was no exception. He had a fake doctor's note ready for us, and if the teachers and parents found out it was fake, he'd say he'd planned it all. Sally, though, we'd just met her this year in 5th grade. The moment I laid eyes on her, my heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. Little hearts formed around her head, just like in the cartoons. But just as quick as I'd fallen for her, she took a liking to Johnny, and they hit it off. And she often rolled her eyes at me. At the end of the pier that was yards and yards away, water splashed. I squinted to get a good look. Figured something had been thrown into the water and washed ashore, for it was usually like that. Guests came to the lake, swam, held parties. Music blasted at full volume, and instead of taking care of the lake that provided them with the best Saturday and Sunday parties and cookouts, they littered the water and the sand. Even the junkies left their pills, and needles scattered their poison, which became a scavenger hunt for the other junkies and beach cleanup crew. I took a few steps away from Johnny and Sally, then turned to tell them I'd be back, that I wanted to see what was at the pier. But Johnny and Sally began to make out. They kissed, as fake as the telenovela actors my mother watched every evening from 6 to 9, and she ignored me those 3 hours. In fact, I was on my own most of the time, whether she was home or not. She either worked, watched TV, or locked herself in her bedroom. When I arrived at the pier, I made my way under the boardwalk. The clouds that had gathered darkened the underpier, but I could still make out the figures that stood still. It was like they'd met for a secret meeting, and I'd just discovered them. "Hi," my voice said, struggling to get that one word out. Not one of them minded me, but I could hear their whispers. I inched closer. Their whispers stopped. At the end of the underpier, where the water and sand met, there she was, my mannequin, my savior. I went to her, avoiding the still figures. But as I neared them, a harsh gust of wind pushed me down to the sand, close to them. "Push," I heard them whisper. "Water," they continued. My breathing increased at the thought of these lifeless models somehow communicating. I looked up at them. The figures had their heads turned to me. How? I had no clue. They had no eyes, no mouths. In fact, there was nothing on them but the head, arms, legs, and torso that made them up. Naked, motionless. And though they weren't looking at me directly, their gaze was fixed on me. I pushed myself up and walked backward, away from them, away to the light, past the underpier. But before my body touched the light, one of them blocked me. It was her. I knew it. There was a connection between us. I turned to her. The arm that had stopped me remained up in the air. "Bring," they said. And I turned to them. No realizing when, she pushed me, and again, I was down. Sand kicked in my face. No idea which of them had done it, because when I looked up, they remained still. Now, they were closer. How many were they? 9, perhaps. 10, if you counted her behind me. Where was Johnny? Sally? Still making out? Friend? Forever. Us? Never leave. They had a cultish demeanor about them. When they spoke, it was chant-like, but like they were speaking to me. "Water?" she said behind me. "Lake." "What? You want me to go into the water?" "Us. Forever." Friend. Were they recruiting me? "I can't," I cried. The sand that covered my hand scratched my eyes. "My mom, she'll get worried. My friends, they'll come looking for me soon. She hate," one of them whispered. "Who? My mom? Sally?" "He lost," another one said. "Johnny." Had I lost my friend to her? We friends, the one behind me, tugged at my shirt. Her hand already pointed at the water. I turned to my friends. For a moment, it looked like Johnny had noticed me and locked eyes with me. Then, Sally turned his face away, to hers. Whether she hated me or disliked me, what was true was that she didn't consider me her friend. She was all about Johnny. I turned to the mannequins under the pier. There were 8 now, plus she, who had saved me, still behind me. The one missing was now in the lake, its torso above the water, its arms extended, ready to receive me. "Friends forever," I whispered. "The sea witch, clouds of ink and iron, pressed against a leaden ocean. He found her waist deep in the salty waters, fingers trailing in swirling sea foam, gaze cast to the storm promised heavy on the horizon. Winds tasting of seaweed and salt brine danced in her hair, tangling through long obsidian strands and tossing them into thickening air. From the dunes he called to her, fair one. His hail drifted, swallowed by crashing surf. I seek the sea witch, only winds stirred in answer. Slowly, her head turned ever slightly to gaze over her shoulder. From great distance, and obscured beneath wild strands of hair, her dark eyes locked to his with piercing intensity that struck his core like lightning. With a hum that rippled across the waves, she spoke. A harrowing voice of 1,000 voices burrowed deep in his mind with a cold whisper of soft honey. Is this what they call me these days? Her lips curled, not to a smile, but something knowing, something old. I've heard tales of your great power, he cried, stepping closer to the waves. Please, I seek your help. She laughed darkly from the water. Great power. She tasted the words, rolling them over her tongue like foam dissolving on the shore. Thunder rumbled on the horizon. In an instant, she was before him, her face inches from his. She floated above a boiling sea, robes billowing over tumultuous waves that crashed to the shore with surging hunger. Energy crackled in the air, charged with a deep pulse that rivaled the burning winds. Her hair spiraled in silken waves before her, caressing his face, and her eyes, deep and endless, burned with intensity that could sink the largest of ships. And did they call it great? She whispered, her voice of 1,000 voices quaking earth and thrumming his bones. When they led me to the pyre, the wind howled, tearing at his clothes, the salt stinging his eyes. Did they call it great? She continued with increasing intensity. When they bound my wrists, when they fed me to the flames, he cowered before her as the sea swelled with hunger. I surely think not. She rose higher, straightening her form, bare feet brushing against churning waves. And yet, still, here they slither to me, mewling for party tricks. She looked down upon him with her chin raised. Tell me then, boy, she spat, laced with mockery. What is it that you seek? Gold? Fame? Power, perhaps? She tilted her head. A place among kings? She laughed, and sea spray pelted his skin. With a forearm, he shielded his face and cried, Please, I know not of your past, wise one. The winds raged around him. I seek a cure. My love is plagued with an illness that no medicine or healer can rid. I cannot bear to live without her. The winds slowed, the waters calmed, and slowly the sea witch descended. Her feet sunk in swirling sands beneath the surface, her dark hair to her sides. She eyed him thoughtfully, weighing his words. "Cannot live without her," she echoed, just one voice falling from her lips, in stark contrast to the thousands before. Quiet waves lapped around her calves. "And this woman, she is your great love?" He ignored hairs pricking on his neck as her gaze bore into him. "She is everything to me." She studied him, robes billowing in soft winds. "Yes," she said quietly. "This I will do." "Oh, thank you, thank you," he cried, falling to his knees in the water before her. She narrowed her eyes, looking down upon him. "But there is always a price." "Oh, yes, yes, of course," he stammered, scrambling in his pockets. "I have money." Her voice of thousand voices cracked like thunder. "I do not deal in coins, foolish boy." The waves stirred hungrily around her feet before calming. Then, just one voice, brimming with disdain. "Your debt lies with the universe." He stood up, trembling. He lifted his head to meet her fearsome gaze. "For her, I will pay any price." Her lips twisted to a smile, sharp as glass. "Such conviction," she murmured, almost to herself. "How valiant." The softest chuckle emanated from her, like thunder rumbling on the horizon. She stepped forward, running a cold finger down his cheek. "Very well then, the deal is struck." Her eyes flicked to his. "A life for a life." His breath caught in his throat. With one swift movement, her hand shot to grip the back of his neck, fingers digging into his flesh as she pulled him close. The water swelled around them, ravenous and eager. She laughed, pulling him under and out to sea as he sank deeper, deeper. He thought only of his love. He thought of her laughter, bright and warm, ringing across wildflower meadows around their cottage. He thought of her smile, crooked and beautiful, and the soft hole it hitched in his chest each time she bore it. He thought of the night he fell for her, watching her dance, weaving and spinning between other party-goers beneath the hanging wisteria. She'd smiled at him, waving to come join her. He'd held up his hands, sticking to the edges. He wasn't much for dancing. If he could go back, if he could only go back, he'd join her in a heartbeat. Later, that same night, she'd led him under moonlight, dragging him by the hand through the wood to her favorite place. "Come on," she'd whispered, her laughter echoing in the night. "I have to show you something." She brought him to a hidden gazebo on the lily pond, where she'd kissed him, stolen and bold. The sea kissed him now, stealing air from his lungs as she had. He thrashed against its unwelcome embrace as it ran icy fingers deep into his chest. He thought of her illness, how quickly she'd waned. The doctor's cold looks of detachment that made his blood boil. How they'd came and went, pricking her and bleeding her with leeches, giving all manner of vile treatments, until one day, one of them pulled him aside. "She's too far gone for further treatment," he'd said solemnly. It would be best to sort affairs. His world had shattered then. Nothing mattered but her. In blind desperation for something, anything to keep her alive, he'd ignored the warnings that heeded the whispers and sought the spell weaver, the sea witch. As she pulled him into the depths, he could only hope that it was worth it. Jolt Bailey settled into his window seat. He watched other passengers navigate the aisle with their carry-ons. He saw a pretty young woman in sweats making her way toward him. He thought, "Where have I seen her?" He knew they hadn't met. With hardly a glance, she slid into the seat next to him, strapped herself in, and focused on her cell phone. Bailey stared out the window at airport staff prepping the jet for takeoff. Flying was a necessary evil for him. Its charms had faded years ago, but long overdue. He needed this trip. Hearing laughter, he turned toward the woman. The cause of her humor eluded him. Sensing his attention, she turned. "Can I help you? I'm sorry. I heard you laugh, and I was curious. Not that it's any of your business. I got a text from my agent." "You're right. None of my business." She turned away. Bailey said, "I know this sounds stupid, but do I know you? You look so familiar." Suppressing annoyance, she sighed. "You're asking me if you know me? Oh, for the good old days of trite pickup lines. No, really, I'm not. I wouldn't, not with that line." He laughed. "But no, I'm married, not hitting on you. But I could swear," she sighed. "You watch TV? I was in a movie last season." "Ah, right. Okay, cool. Sorry to bother you." Seeking distraction, he fiddled with the video display. Flight attendants worked their way up the aisle. They checked the overheads and confirmed that everyone was securely strapped in. The captain made announcements. Bailey checked his cell phone. An attendant asked him to shut it off until after takeoff. "Of course," he said. He placed it into his jacket pocket. All had settled. The plane began to taxi. Bailey corrected his perception that the exterior was moving and not the plane. Gets me every time. Once airborne, I can relax. The plane paused and then continued rolling forward. The woman turned to him. "I didn't mean to be short with you before. Nervous flyer. I'd usually be flattered if someone recognized me. You didn't do anything wrong." Bailey smiled. "Not a problem. I imagine fans wanting attention can wear thin. Someday, maybe. But hasn't happened yet. You're one of the few who's actually recognized me. Okay then. Hi. I promise not to stalk you. They laughed. She said, I'm Magnolia. Are you vacationing? Work trip? Glad to meet you. I'm Bailey. Nope. Off to see my kids. Hopefully reconcile with my wife. Long story. You? Getting married. She displayed her ring for him to admire. It was huge. The plane accelerated. This was Bailey's favorite part. Lift off. All that drama. And suddenly, the earth falling away. Bailey's separation from Irene and his twin girls defied explanation. He didn't understand it, nor did she. After 2 years apart, but with non-stop communications, they'd decided to try again. Step by step, once airborne, people relaxed. Some stood waiting for a restroom. Attendants served refreshments. Bailey nodded to Magnolia, who nodded back and looked away. A few minutes later, she became visibly agitated. What's that sound? I don't hear anything odd. You don't? Is that smoke coming from the wing? No. We're going through clouds. Her anxiety seemed to pass. Bailey tried reading. He stared out. Clouds and terrain passed beneath them. He thought about his family. The girls were getting big, about to start school. He dozed. A jolt spilled his water. Someone screamed. Magnolia grabbed the armrest. Bailey thought, air pocket. Normal. With another jolt, the engine sounded ragged. The jet rolled, and more screams followed intense turbulence. Someone fell. People braced themselves. The loudspeakers squawked noise, but no information. Bailey secured his seatbelt and saw Magnolia now crouched in a fetal position. Bailey touched her shoulder. You okay? She said. Yes. No. No. I'm a mess. Can I do something? No. It's too late. There's nothing. No one. Barely able to hear her. He held her shoulder. She babbled. He said, talk to me. I can listen. She stared with wild eyes. The jolts increased. She gasped, I doubt you. You have no idea. He agreed. Holding his gaze, she leaned in. My life's a shambles. I've hurt too many people. Used them. Betrayed their trust. Ruined lives. I stole things. He tried to relate. I'm no saint. You don't get it. Can't. Not talking about a lapse or some white lie, but a pattern. Committed crimes. Horrible. Looking down, she steeled herself. This trip. Wanted to make amends. No time now. Need to tell someone. She squeezed his hand. The plane shifted, and they held on to each other. Everyone was screaming. Overhead compartments opened. Luggage rained into the aisle. It felt like the plane was breaking up. He held his focus. Shouting, he said, "You want me to? Listen, let me. Let it out," she sobbed. "I've been vicious, left people broken in the gutter. Inexcusable." He recoiled, but increasing her grip. She pulled him closer. "Did you? Shut up! Listen, can't die with this weight pressing." He pulled her closer, comforting her as much as possible. Eyes closed, their foreheads touched. They found a moment of peace amid the swirling chaos. "Thank you for putting up with me. Needed this. I love you. Love you too. For what it's worth." "Shh, don't talk. Nothing to say." With another jolt, something changed. Relief. The noise and chaos subsided. And so did the panic. Another jolt generated more screams. Then a collective sigh as the plane settled into stable flight. Soon, the captain announced preparations to land. Everyone needed to stow loose items and fasten seatbelts. Attendants assisted an injured passenger. Trying to compose himself, Bailey struggled to digest the last hour. He only wanted to see his family. The landing was uneventful. Everyone cheered when wheels touched down. Passengers lined up to begin disembarking. Magnolia stood into the aisle. She didn't look back. Bailey joined the throng behind her. He touched her shoulder. She turned. He said, "I wanted to say about what happened back there." "Oh, that? Forget it. Acting 101. Just an exercise learned in improv class." Stunned, he said, "What?" "I made it up. I'm an actor. Get it?" It took a moment to comprehend what she'd said. Right. Of course. That was it. She turned away. They didn't speak again. He set his jaw and dug his fingers into the upholstery of the seat beside him. He shut his eyes. Who does that? Whatever she'd done, or not, they'd had a real moment. Two people bonded, healed. He didn't care about Magnolia's flaws or crimes, but calling that an acting exercise, Bailey felt violated. Whatever her crimes, this was worse. She's covering, hopes I won't say anything. Plausible deniability, my ass. Bailey reeled from the last hour. He'd never felt such intimacy. Her casual dismissing of it appalled him. Still jittery from the horrible flight, he felt empty. Acting 101? Really? What a load of crap. Passing the flight attendants and pilot at the exit, he thanked them. Once off the plane, they walked toward baggage claim, each playing the role of the strangers they were. Not enough distance. Descending on the escalator, he saw them and waved. His daughters broke from their mother and ran screaming to him. Each embraced a leg. Holding tight, laughing, Irene approached with a big smile. Embracing, they felt like family. Welcome back. How was your flight? Rough. But I'm here. I'm okay. She kissed him. I'm glad. They embraced again. Over Irene's shoulder, he saw Magnolia kissing her fiancé. Their eyes met. Smiling, she looked away. Bailey looked at her future husband. Poor sap. The crowd surged as the baggage carousel rumbled. He went to it and awaited his luggage. Reaching for his suitcase, he bumped into Magnolia, also reaching for his bag. He said, "This one's mine. Check the tag." She hesitated and stepped back. "You're right. Sorry." He hoisted the bag onto its wheels and walked to join his family. Nothing more to say. Lucien in the sky with diamonds. I really should have realized how vindictive Heather could be. What is that saying? Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. When she found out I was seeing someone else and had traded her in for the other woman, a younger, prettier model, I just know that it was that very moment that she decided to exact her revenge. Unfortunately, Heather knows all of my secrets, including the biggest one of all, the fact that I am a world-renowned jewel thief who has recently completed one of the largest heists of the century, the theft of the Weatherby diamonds. Yes, I stole the necklace quite smoothly and easily from its display case at the art museum. I won't go into all of the meticulous details of how I managed to pull off the job. Let's just say that I know exactly what I'm doing, and I plan everything to the nth degree. All of my operations normally run like a well-oiled machine. That is, if no one interferes with my flow. But no, Heather just had to throw a monkey wrench into my work. I have to take ownership of it, however. It was entirely my own fault. I got careless for a brief moment and let my guard down. One night when I was feeling quite loose and relaxed, admittedly, I had also drunk too much wine. I had bragged to her of my prowess as a jewel thief. I probably also promised her the moon and stars at the time. Later, of course, when I dumped her, she used that information to cook my goose. I just know that she squealed on me and is responsible for my current predicament. I am now on an Air France flight, ready to depart to my native Paris, sweating like a pig because I'm afraid that I've been spotted by the cops. I just know that it's Heather who told. Why else would I be targeted this way? I have always been one to remain incognito, to fly under the radar, so to speak. Thus, the only logical conclusion I can arrive at is that she is the one who turned me in. Now the cops are surely out to get me. They are at this very moment rapidly approaching my seat. The Weatherby diamonds are set with precision into a choker valued at several $1 million. A choker that I am now wearing as I sit here prepared for takeoff. The necklace is currently living up to its name. It is choking me under a somewhat baggy black turtleneck. I despise turtlenecks, hate the way they press up against your neck. I opted for the loosest turtleneck possible, but it still presses up uncomfortably against my neck. The combination of the choker necklace and the turtleneck are almost more than I can bear. I wear the turtleneck under an equally baggy hoodie so no one can spot the necklace. Normally, I prefer my clothes to conform to my trim body like a glove. My sartorial senses are offended by this sloppy but choking attire. Who would ever wear a turtleneck with a hoodie? Unfortunately, I really have no choice. My outfit was not chosen for fashion. It does, however, allow me to sail through airport security without being stopped. The plan is, once I land in Paris, I will meet with a high-end jewelry broker who will give me top dollar for the jewels. I will be Hashon for life. That is, if I get away with it. I am afraid that the police are right now, at this very moment, making their way to the back of the plane where I am sitting. My seat on the jumbo jet, like my clothes, has also been carefully selected. I am in the second to last row and am seated on the aisle. I chose this seat so that I can make a quick exit to the restroom if needed and dump the jewels somewhere in the tiny closet of the restroom. We haven't taken off yet, and the flight attendant has just made the standard announcement about how we need to remain seated with our seat belts on and our trays in the upright position. Right after she says that, I spot the blue uniformed policeman making his way back towards me. With no time to waste, I disregard the stewardess's explicit directions and quickly shove my tray to the upright position. I then dash inside the tiny cubicle of a restroom before anyone can stop me. I shut the door firmly and pull the lever to lock the door. I really need to find a hiding spot for the necklace. I can't afford to be caught with it. I don't want to flush it down the toilet. I would be, in effect, flushing all of my hopes and dreams away. Instead, I need to stash the necklace somewhere so I can somehow later retrieve it. I quickly pull my hoodie off, followed by my turtleneck. With fumbling fingers, I fiddle with the silver clasp until the necklace falls off into my hands. Next, I carefully place the necklace in the paper towel dispenser behind the wad of folded paper towels. As I do this, my heart racing, I hear a sharp knock on the plasticine door that folds in like an accordion. "Monsieur?" the flight attendant inquires. She swiftly changes to English, but speaks with a strong French accent. "The plane is ready for takeoff. We need you to return to your seat now and put your seatbelt on, please," she says in a firm but polite voice. "Pardon, mademoiselle. I really need to use the facilities. I will be out directly." I run the water in the sink to make my act convincing and hurriedly wipe my hands with just one paper towel, taking care not to use too many so that the necklace remains hidden in the dispenser. I drop the used paper towel in the wastebasket and then don my turtleneck and hoodie once again. With 2 layers on in the tiny, airless washroom, I am now sweating more than ever. No matter, I tell myself, taking a deep breath in an effort to remain cool. At least, I am no longer choking. My throat feels slightly better, although the turtleneck still irritates me. I quickly push open the door and return to my aisle seat, where I dutifully pull my seatbelt across my lap and try to appear cool and collected. The policeman approaches me, his shiny badge glinting in the morning sun streaming through the small windows. "Mr. Martin?" He pronounces Martin in the American way, rather than the way I prefer it. Martine. My passport says I am Lucien Martin, although it is not my real name. My passport, which is fake, says I am a French citizen. When in America, however, I have a California driver's license that proclaims me to be Luke Martin. I have deliberately chosen a name that is very common, both in French and English. In every aspect of my life, I need to blend in and remain unmemorable. "Yes," I answer politely. "Please stand up. We need to do a pat search on you." "Pat search?" I repeat indignantly. "What are you looking for?" I am not at liberty to say, but with the Patriot Act, we have the right to search any and all air passengers at will. The cop says firmly, "Patriot Act? Do you think I am a terrorist?" I say this quite loudly. I hear a collective gasp from my fellow passengers, who are understandably alarmed, hearing nothing other than the word terrorist. "I sincerely hope not, sir," the cop said smoothly. "Just doing my job." I let out a tremendous sigh. "Go ahead. Do your job. Pat away." The cop uses bladed hands to do a thorough pat search, running his hands smoothly up and down my sides. He searches my pant pockets and instructs me to remove my hoodie. I do so, laughing inside. I didn't want to wear the hoodie anyways. After several long minutes, the cop finally stops his fruitless search, finding nothing. "Okay, sir," he says finally. "You have been cleared." He walks to the front of the plane, where he presumably has to talk to the captain. "This plane is cleared for takeoff," he announces to the male attendant standing at the front of the plane. As he does that, I glance towards the back of the plane to see the reaction from the other flight attendant, the lady who had tried to shoo me out of the washroom. To my surprise, she quickly enters the washroom and pulls the door firmly shut behind her. My heart sinks. My plan had been to quickly visit the head once again and retrieve the jewels before anyone else entered. I haven't seen anyone else, apart from the stewardess, use the restroom. I have been carefully watching, in between dealing with the nosy policeman. Now, I pray it isn't too late. Several long moments pass, and the flight attendant finally exits the restroom. I quickly unbuckle my seatbelt and hurry back there. I frantically pull the door shut behind me and shove my hand into the narrow slot of the paper towel dispenser. I feel around with my fingers, my heart sinking. The necklace is gone. With shaking hands and fury coursing through my veins, I return to my seat. As I do so, I catch sight of the petite, blonde flight attendant who had entered the washroom before me. She gives me a Mona Lisa smile and tells me once again that I need to buckle my seatbelt and prepare for takeoff. I smile back and raise my eyebrows at her flirtatiously. Certainly, mademoiselle. I'll buckle up right away. I can hardly wait to get to Paris. But of course, she responds in her charming French accent. Paris is the city of light. I vow to myself that once I reach Paris, I will tail the flight attendant and somehow try to overpower her, either by brute force or with my relentless charm. A gentleman jewel thief's job is never done, I tell myself. I need to retrieve the diamonds at all costs. They are my ticket to the good life. The plane's engine roars as if feels my strong determination. The giant silver bird speeds down the runaway and triumphantly takes to the sky. At last, the blonde flight attendant moves down the plane's narrow aisle. She turns her head back towards me at the last moment and smiles mischievously. Mona Lisa no longer. I hope you enjoy your flight, monsieur. Bon voyage. What she left behind. California, 1868. Clara Emerson pressed herself against the train window, her eyes glazed and alert from exhaustion. She stretched out her aching legs, revealing her muddy shoes that poked out from underneath the hem of her dress. She retracted her feet back from visibility, gathering and stroking her straw-like, graying hair as she peered out the window. Clara glanced to see if anyone was watching her. Only a handful of people sat behind her, none of which were looking in her direction. No, I'm safe. She drew in a deep breath, steadying herself, but unease coiled in her chest and churned in her belly. Turning in her seat, she lowered her gaze to the small diamond band on her finger. Sunlight caught in its facets, scattering tiny prisms across her skin. For just a moment, she marveled at its beauty. Clara looked up and locked eyes with a man several seats ahead, clean-shaven, with thin-framed spectacles perched on his nose. The man stared at her with a hollow, unreadable expression. Her pulse kicked. How long had he been watching her without her noticing? Her skin went pale and clammy, like a predator spotting easy prey. The man rose from his seat and approached her, not breaking eye contact once. Clara's stiffened in her seat as the man approached. Go away. May I sit? I have a long journey ahead of me, and I could sure use the company, he said to her. No. Of course. The man sat down across from her. His eyes remained on her, almost as if they were boring into her very soul. Didn't anyone tell you it's rude to stare? She asked him, hoping that illuminating his behavior would cause him to cease. But it did not. Forgive me, ma'am. It's just, you look so familiar. Do we know each other, perhaps? No, I don't recall your face. You must be mistaken. No, I think we do know each other. Why won't he quit? Where are you from? I'm not going to tell you that. You haven't even told me who you are. Ah, how foolish of me. My name is Simon Klein. He leaned forward, extending his hand to her. He sat back down and continued to stare at her, expectantly this time. Clara sighed, brushing a strand of hair out of her face. I'm Elaine. Elaine Whitmore. Elaine. I would have taken you for an Alice or Charlotte or Clara. Clara froze in her seat, her eyes wide and her palms sweaty. Who is this man? No, I'm just Elaine. Mr. Klein gave her a wry smile, shaking his head. So, where are you headed to? Clara shrugged. Anywhere that's far away from here. Ah, come on. California's the place to be. There's opportunity here. Not for me. Not anymore. Shame, he said. What is? Mr. Klein chuckled. Surely you have friends or family that will miss you. It almost sounds like you're running away. Now he was just getting on her nerves. You're quite brazen, Mr. Klein. My business is none of your concern. Mr. Klein pressed his lips tightly together, as if he were in pain, and forced out a smile. My apologies, Mrs. Whitmore. I never quite learned how to keep my nose out of others' affairs. I am a curious fellow, curious indeed. Hoping to break the tension, she pulled out a flask from underneath her shawl. Care for a drink? A wild glimmer in his eyes appeared. It was as if he wanted to reach out and strangle her. No, thank you, he said, his demeanor shifting. There was something dangerous underneath this man's calm exterior. Somehow, that made him more terrifying. If he were angry and violent from the start of their encounter, she could predict his next move and accept that she was under attack. But this man unnerved her to her core. There was something almost familiar about him. Gathering her shawl, she stood from her seat, and as steady as she could present herself to be, she faced him. I think I would prefer to be in my own company for the rest of the journey. Good day to you. Please, there's no need to leave. If you wish to be alone, I can accommodate. Mr. Klein stood, moving back to his original seat. Clara returned to hers, facing away from Mr. Klein this time. But she could still feel his eyes on her. She waited until the train had passed a dilapidated old shack close to the tracks before rising from her seat and creeping her way down toward the caboose. Her heart quickened, as did her pace. "Excuse me, sir," she heard behind her. Sucking in a breath, she chanced a glance behind her, locking eyes with Mr. Klein, who was trailing close behind her. He did not smile this time at her. His eyes were cold and focused on her intently, like before. But there was a rage in those eyes, a bloodlust, in fact. She didn't think twice this time, turning and running down the aisle like a mad woman. She stumbled through the empty train carts, praying an escape plan would present itself to her before he reached her. But there wasn't enough time, and there was nowhere left to run. I'm trapped. She looked out the back window and considered the tracks. Maybe she could jump. Maybe. She might still have a chance. The door behind Clara creaked open. She spun around to see Mr. Klein reaching into his coat pocket, revealing a silver pistol. She backed away slowly, keeping her eyes trained on Mr. Klein, if that even was his name, and she pressed herself against the back door of the caboose. He pointed the barrel at her. Rage oozed out from beneath the calm, collected persona he performed earlier. His hand trembled, but he remained in control of himself for the moment. Clara trembled, terrified of what he would do to her. "What do you want from me? Why are you following me?" "I saw you," Mr. Klein said. "I saw what you did to my sister that night." Whatever she planned on saying to him, the words fell empty in her mouth. "This is it. It's over." "What? You thought no one saw you sneak out of her house in the dead of night? And I find my sister dead in her home? No, that's a lie. I would never harm anyone. I'm a good woman." "How do you sleep at night?" he said, his finger twitchy on the trigger. "I know it was you who did it. No sooner had I returned from my hunting trip, I see you sneaking out of her house like some rat. She was dead when I found her. Please, have mercy on me. I would never do such a thing. Liar." Mr. Klein drew closer. She fumbled for the handle behind her, desperate for escape. Her weight against the door caused it to swing open, landing her on her back. She held her hands over her head to shield herself. "Why?" he cried. "Why did you do it? Tell me!" A shrill, raspy whistle emanated from the front of the train, distracting Mr. Klein for the briefest moment. Clara seized the opportunity and kicked Mr. Klein in the shin, dropping him to his knees. He screamed, clutching his leg as the gun clattered next to him. Without a second thought, she scrambled for the pistol and swiped it, aiming the barrel at him. "Get up," she said. Mr. Klein held his hands up, pushing himself up off the floor. "I'm not the one that deserves this. I'm not going to die today." She pressed her finger to the trigger, but it wouldn't budge. The hammer. Mr. Klein grabbed hold of the barrel and yanked it back hard. Too hard. Clara released the pistol, and with it, Mr. Klein, screaming as he staggered backward, tumbling off the train. He hit the tracks hard, rolling like a rag doll, before coming to rest, bloodied and limp, his lifeless eyes fixed toward the sky. The wind violently whipped Clara's hair as Mr. Klein's body disappeared beyond view. She steadied herself against the railing, her thumb absent-mindedly tracing the curve of the diamond, lost in a thought she refused to finish. "I've said too much." I noticed him the first time at the coffee shop on 3rd Street. He sat 2 tables over, stirring a cup of tea he never drank. He wasn't looking at me, not directly, but there was something in the way his head tilted, the way his eyes flickered over the rim of his cup, that made me feel observed. Every so often, he would blow on his mug, and eventually, this act became unsettling, as I knew the tea must have grown cold in the hour he sat unmoving. This man was dressed neatly, a stark contrast to myself, in a worn sweatshirt and messy bun that couldn't contain my red hair. He wore an ironed shirt, pressed pants, and his copper hair was immaculately combed and styled. He was remarkable because he simply did not belong. A bustling place with people moving in and out as he sat stoically with his tea. The second time was at the bookstore downtown. I was running my fingers along the shelves, searching for something to pull me in. Recently, I've been drawn to the paranormal and had moved into horror. It was terrifying, yet intriguing, as I began to imagine all there is out there that is unknown. As I perused the back of the latest Awad novel, I saw him standing in the philosophy aisle to my right. He wasn't reading, just tracing the spine of a book with one long finger. When I walked past, he looked up. "Not your usual genre," he said, nodding toward the horror novel in my hands. I frowned. "Excuse me?" He tilted his head. "You usually read literary fiction, something with layered metaphors, quiet heartbreak." A shiver danced down my spine. "How would you know that?" He didn't answer. Instead, he closed the book he had been holding and walked away, disappearing behind the towering shelves before I could press further. As I followed him, his pace quickened. Dressed in seemingly the exact same clothes as days before, with a steady, strong step, I could not place him, though it felt like I knew him from somewhere. In my haste, without noticing, I had run into a display. As the books scattered to the floor, I muttered apologies to the staff member who ran over. I quickly looked up, and he was gone. By the third time, I knew it wasn't a coincidence. I was at the park, spring in the air, though Lake Michigan was still hedged in ice dunes, which rose and fell in the evening light, my breath curling in front of me in soft clouds. He was sitting on a bench, his posture relaxed, hands resting in his lap. Unlike before, he didn't pretend not to notice me. I noticed he wore a scarf. A scarf, I swear, was my own. I had lost it many years ago, in grade school, and was scolded for my carelessness. It couldn't be, I thought, as I approached closer. His gaze lifted as I approached, as if he had been waiting. "You always take this route home." I stopped in my tracks. "What?" He smiled, but it wasn't a casual, friendly expression. It was something else, something knowing. The same path, every evening. "You like the way the light hits the water at this hour." My pulse quickened. Are you following me? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he gestured to the lake. There's something peaceful about watching things move where they aren't meant to be. The way ripples distort reflections. Everything familiar becomes something else. I crossed my arms. That doesn't answer my question. He exhaled, running a hand through his auburn hair. No, I suppose it doesn't. My skin prickled. Who are you? For a moment, I thought he might tell me. He parted his lips as if considering it. His gaze locked onto mine with an intensity that sent a strange, twisting sensation through my stomach. But then, just as quickly, something shifted. His face, his expression. It was like watching a shadow pass over the sun. I've said too much, he murmured, more to himself than to me. He stood, brushing invisible dust from his coat. Forget this conversation. My heart pounded. Forget it? He nodded, his voice quiet. It's better that way. And then he turned, walking away with an unsettling hum. I wanted to call out, to demand answers, but my throat tightened. I could only watch as he disappeared into the trees on the shoreline, his silhouette dissolving in the twilight. It wasn't until I turned back toward the path, heart hammering, that I realized something strange. There were no footprints where he had been standing, and the air where he had spoken still carried the scent of something I couldn't quite name. Something like old paper, burnt cedar, and a storm about to break. I don't remember deciding to come here. One moment, I was standing in the park. The next, the ice stretched before me, endless and waiting. I had begun to question whether I was losing my grip on reality. The strange man's cryptic words, the shifting moments in time, and the absence of solid ground beneath my feet had all led me to this moment, standing on the frozen shore of Lake Michigan. The ice cracked beneath my boots, protesting against the weight of yet another cold season. The lake stretched out before me, an endless horizon of white and blue that should have felt serene, but instead left me with an unsettling feeling, like something was wrong, something lurking just out of sight. I walked carefully, mindful of the shifting terrain beneath me. The lake was beautiful, but treacherous. Mounds of frozen sand rose in strange, wind-carved shapes, dusted with snow. The ice here was patchy, some parts solid, some beginning to crack and leak dark pools of water beneath. There was something about this place that made my stomach turn, something about the way the lake seemed to pulse under my feet. It felt alive, watching me, waiting. The icy wind bit at my skin, and my breath curled in the air in front of me in wisps of smoke. I knelt by a pool of dark water that had opened beneath the ice, watching as minnows darted below, their silver bodies flashing like tiny ghosts in the clear, cold depths. The clarity of the water made my pulse quicken. Too easy to see the darkness below. Too easy to imagine the lake's cold hunger. Then, something caught my eye, a darker patch of ice than the others. An odd shape trapped beneath the surface. I moved closer, my boots skidding slightly on the slick ground. The ice here was different, smoother, clearer, almost like glass. And underneath it, something unnatural. A smear of color, a reddish-orange streak that seemed impossibly bright against the deep blue-black of the water. My heart lurched. I knelt down, tapping gently at the ice with the toe of my boot, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The shape underneath wavered, but it didn't move. I pressed harder, cracking the ice, and then, as though the surface were giving up its secret, the water pooled, revealing what had been hidden beneath. Hair, long and dark, flowing like seaweed with the current. A face, pale and lifeless, staring upward, eyes wide and empty. My breath caught. A sharp, cold terror raced through my veins. I stumbled back, my heart hammering in my chest, but I couldn't look away. The wind howled, and the ice beneath me groaned, shifting uneasily. And then realization struck like a physical blow. The woman under the ice, frozen, lifeless, was me. A strangled sound left my throat. My mind recoiled, trying to reject what I was seeing. But there was no denying it. It was my own face staring back at me, my own vacant, sightless eyes, trapped beneath the ice. A whisper cut through the howling wind. "Do you understand now?" I turned sharply. The man was there, standing just a few feet behind me, as if he had always been. His expression was unreadable, but something in his eyes, an ancient sorrow, a knowing, made my stomach churn. "You weren't meant to find this," he said quietly, his gaze flickering to the ice, to the frozen image of me. I shook my head, my pulse pounding in my ears. "What is this? Why is she? Why am I?" "You've been lost," he said softly. "Lost in time, lost in memory. The past and future bleed together. You are the woman under the ice, and yet you're still here, trying to find your way." A deep, pulsing ache settled in my chest. My breath came in short, shallow bursts. I wanted to reject his words, to turn and run, but something about them rang true in a way I couldn't explain. I opened my mouth to speak, but something flickered in my peripheral vision. Movement in the ice. I turned sharply, expecting to see the body beneath me shift. But what I saw instead made my blood run cold. Reflections. Not just one, but many, scattered across the ice in broken, distorted fragments. My face, but not as it was now. Older, younger, crying, laughing, standing somewhere else entirely, flickering like a glitch in time. 100 versions of me trapped beneath the surface, shifting and blending like ripples in the water. One version of me didn't flicker and vanish like the others. She was staring back, her mouth moving soundlessly, like she was trying to warn me. My hands trembled. "This isn't real," the man sighed, as if he had been expecting this reaction. "What is real?" he murmured. "Is time so linear, Alex? Can you really be sure you're still the same person you think you are? Or have you already crossed over?" My pulse slammed against my ribs. I wanted to deny it, to tell him he was wrong. But something inside me knew he wasn't. The lake groaned beneath me, the ice fracturing in slow, creeping lines. The world tilted, unsteady, and for a moment, I felt as though I was slipping between the cracks, the space between past and future collapsing around me. I turned back to the man, searching his face for some kind of anchor, some kind of answer. "What do I do?" I whispered. His eyes were solemn, unwavering. "You come with me. There's only one way to move forward." The words hung in the air, heavy with finality. I hesitated, my gaze flickering once more to the frozen version of myself beneath the ice. A life lost, a path already taken. But if I stepped away, if I turned back now, would I ever get another chance to change it? I swallowed hard. My fingers curled into fists at my sides. And then I nodded. The man held out his hand, and I took it.